Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Hassan of the Shining Star. He's a 4-star general pool assassin introduced in ID, the second Ordeal Call chapter. He's actually the first 4-star Hassan, and with his addition, there's one in every rarity except 1-star. They should give us the midget from Hollow Ataraxia, the one that puts a bomb in your head. But going back to the man of the hour, let's see if he's worth leveling up. Hassan of the Shining Star's noble phantasm is Zabanya, Thoughtless Framework. This is an AoE arch attack with 3 turns of preemptive NP damage, a fixed magnitude anti-human attribute modifier, and a penalty that deals 1k damage to him every time you use it. Its overcharge grants a single turn of a preemptive, arts, and quick buff. Thoughtless Framework has quite an ambitious combination of effects for a general pool 4-star. Ramping NP damage means that as long as you can charge Hassan up every turn, your damage will go up naturally over the course of a 3-turn farming run, and anti-buffs are always a nice thing to have. Outside of Buster teams, anti-human damage is not something you can easily work into a lineup that doesn't already have it baked in. When you farm with Hassan, you don't really care about Thoughtless Framework's self-damage, but in longer fights and boss encounters where enemies fight back more aggressively, be aware that it does add up. Doubly so if you're running Black Grail, since you'll take a combined 1500 damage just from attrition on turns that you use Thoughtless Framework. So with perfect uptime, Hassan of the Shining Star could only last about 8 turns on the field, using his NP with Black Grail. And this is assuming he doesn't take any hits in the interim. To help his survivability, he has Battle Acceleration, Shadow. This is a 2-hit evade with 3 turns of star generation. It also has an on-hit effect to preemptively increase his crit damage for 3 turns when hitting with quick cards. Now is also a good time to bring up that Hassan has 3 quick cards in his deck. This is not a great state of affairs for an art servant, certainly not on release. But he does double down on the gimmick with Black Blade. This one's a 3-turn package of buffs to crit damage and P gain, and an on-hit effect to charge by 10% when using quick cards. Now you may have noticed a few incompatibilities between being an AoE arts and P spammer and a quick face card attacker. Some of these issues have solutions coming down the road, but at least one problem doesn't. In a farming run, you don't really use your face cards, unless you consistently undershoot the kill threshold or you run a CL team. So all this quick shit stapled onto Hassan's kit doesn't really help him clear nodes. It only matters for stand-in fight encounters where you stay in contact with a given enemy. As yet another concession to the quick hybrid shtick, Hassan has martial training under the Dark Knight. This is a 3-turn arts quick hybrid buff that also gives a 3-turn attack buff on darkness terrain. The only darkness setter in the game is Lohi, and she's a quick AoE berserker. So generally any situation where you could run the two together is one that would be more easily solved running her as the sole attacker. So don't count on getting mileage out of that terrain buff. The fact of the matter is that while Hassan of the Shining Star has a lot of value stored in those quick cards, switching between arts and quick feels pretty bad even when you don't have better options, like a Mighty Chain or a multi-NP chain. The current roster of art supports don't really help out in this regard. Castoria and Jufu are loop enablers first and foremost, so they primarily benefit his NP and arts card. Singular. That's pretty rough if you're trying to milk his entire skill set. Even someone like Lady Avalon, who gives him de facto healing and a crit buff, is mostly there to benefit his survivability and that single arts card. Oh, and here's a problem with using her as a frontline support. Hassan of the Shining Star has no battery whatsoever, so you need to get his full meter from your supports, or 80% if you max out his second append skill. Keep that in the back of your head. If you've been reading ahead, you may know there's actually going to be a concerted effort to make Arts Quick Hybrid servants usable through the release of Summer Tiamat next year. She's a support archer who has a lot of useful tools for someone like Hassan of the Shining Star. Stars in charge income, crit damage, attack, a heal, arts, and quick. And she has a 50% self-battery that splashes 30% for the rest of your team. On top of this, her noble phantasm gives even more arts, quick, and crit buffs on top of a single turn party invuln. This removes a fair bit of the friction you get on Hassan from switching card types. When you're allowed to play aggressively, this combination lets you leverage most of his skill set in a single fight, which results in more potential to spike your damage on a single turn. That said, there are downsides. Firstly, you might think to go double Tiamat so you can stack these buffs, but doing so entirely with your frontline has a pretty severe drawback. Each Tiamat splashes 30% charge for a total of 60. Even with Hassan's second append skill, that leaves you short by 20. You could run a charging mystic code like Summer Streetwear, an alternative craft essence like Ocean Flyer, or swap in an extra charger like Jufu, but truth be told, none of these options are particularly appealing. Aside from Summer Streetwear, which is nice for low stakes farming runs, but not my first choice for a boss fight. Now you might think swapping is just fine, but remember that Summer Tiamat has a lot of her power tied to her noble phantasm. This requires her to be on the field, so realistically you'd want to start with a non-Tiamat charger on the field and swap them out. Doable with Jufu, sure, but you're eating a swap right off the bat, which makes you significantly less flexible. This can also create defensive issues because you want to use Tiamat's NP on turn 1, but it's also your main form of protection, so you can potentially be quite vulnerable in a double Tiamat frontline. Instead, I'd recommend using at least one Castoria. You'll lose some of that upfront punch, but you don't need a turn 1 swap, and you have a party-wide defensive tool that can last for more than a single turn. Leaving your swap open has one pretty big benefit. Remember how Hassan ramps up with NP damage buffs? Well, if you swap in Oberon on turn 3, you can cash all those in for a pretty significant damage boost. It'll brick him, but you've got a pretty good shot at blowing up whatever you're fighting. Here's an interesting oddity. Hassan of the Shining Star has an anti-assassin append skill. Servants with this type of anti-same class append 3 are hypothetically useful in Grand Servant duels. It's also worth noting that the Grand Assassin, Azrael, is a human attribute enemy, and your chosen servant can equip their Bond CE without using up their primary slot. Shining Star's Bond effect gives him party crit and even more anti-human damage, on top of what you get on Thoughtless Framework. It's an intriguing proposition, but the reality is that the Grand Assassin duel is built as a single target fight, and there are many better options than Hassan of the Shining Star. But if you plan to go hard and really min-max the shit out of your copy, you might be able to get some decent results. It's funny. Hassan of the Shining Star almost seems like a servant made to counter the old AoE Arts Assassin curse, where none of the units in the category would function properly, whether due to hit counts or insta-kill. But this is a problem that's been fixed several times over, with the introduction of the high-end Tezcat, the Summer Welfare Valkyries, and even an upgrade to Summer Nitocris, which made her insta-kill not actively sabotage her game plan. And on this front, the Summer Valkyries make for some stiff competition. They have anti-earth damage in contrast to his anti-human niche, but it's worth comparing the two in an account-building sense. Shining Star has generally better damage and a more defined skill set, but the Summer Valks have an actual battery, and they're welfare servants, which means you can obtain them through evocation, and they can be ascended without hunting for additional items. If you obtain a ton of Hassan early on, it's worth going with him, but if you just need to have an AoE assassin for mid-game team-building purposes, the Valks fit the niche without needing any major detours. It also doesn't help that, in order to reach high skill and append levels with Hassan, you're going to need Ordeal Call materials, and in early account building, you'll likely find better uses for your Pure Prisms. Hassan of the Shining Star is an adequate servant who sacrifices longevity and battery access in exchange for ramping NP damage and a quick card suite. Pre-Summer Tiamat, he can't effectively leverage the quick half of his skill set, which will make him feel quite clunky. Post-Tiamat, you can actually have some fun testing his moveset out, but I personally find it more of a novelty than anything else. He wants to stay in contact to use his quick cards, but he accumulates self-damage in a way that you'd almost want to run a defensive, healing arts team instead. There's always a trade-off with this guy. He's good for a general pull 4-star, but you don't necessarily need him for anything. He offers next to nothing for multi-core teams, so his usefulness as a farmer depends on how early you get him. Thanks for watching, lads. This week I'm running a light schedule on stream, over at twitch.tv/Finotaisen. The Chaos Wheel is back on Friday, I've got Bravely Default on Saturday, and FGO on Sunday. I stream at 3 PM Pacific time, so stop by if you want to hang out. See you there.